This is the Linefeed reading list for October 2011. In this edition we'll be looking at a whole heap of mags. I haven't counted them, and actually I've made this video where I've tried to make it a lot shorter because I thought they were getting a bit long. So it's more mags in less time, so hopefully it'll be a bit snappier. We're going to start with a magazine. Well, you can see it here. It's not really magazine, but it's a strange format anyway. It's called Wooooo, and it's rather good. I'm a fan, yes I am. This is Wooooo magazine. Is it a magazine? I don't know. It's pretty much a paperback. Like, it's paperback paper. It's it's just same size, shape, everything like that. It's not a novel though. It's like chock full of interviews, and they're really quite irreverent sort of interviews with people you would know and some people you might not know. This one's quite a weird mixture. This Grace Slick, there she is, who used to be in Jefferson Airplane, talking about being invited to like President Nixon's garden parties and trying to slip him LSD and stuff like that. And then there's sort of like random skaters and people that you would know of if you're into that sort of scene, I think. It doesn't come out on a regular basis either. It comes out whenever editor-in-chief Jason Crombie can sort of get to it. But it's worth sort of keeping an eye out for every time it does come out. There's been a big gap between this and the last issue. They're up to issue 7. This is number 7. Yeah, you can see too the format's really interesting. There's some ads, but they're very sort of stylized ads. And I think I showed you before, there's sort of a color section, so you can see a bit of the work that the people inside have done, because there's sort of interviews with artists and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, Wooooo is really cool. You can get it online. It's hard to find elsewhere if you're not in New York. We're looking at Little White Lies, and Little White Lies has been in these reading lists for forever because it's one of my favourite magazines in the world. It's really good. This issue is just as good and made like extra special by guest illustrator Michael Gillette, doing all the sort of back pages and the cover, which it's just seems to hang together really well, this issue, in terms of the design and the illustration. And I wanted to pick this up because this is a little free version that you can pick up. It's just really interesting way to sort of market a magazine, I thought, to have your big mother version, your big proper version, and then to have this really cool little tiny version just sitting in shops, or like, because it's a cinema magazine, it sits in cinemas, so when you go buy your cinema ticket you can also pick up this little, it's not really a brochure, it's actually got whole articles in it. It's just, yeah, a lot cheaper to produce, I think, but a really nice idea to sort of help market your magazine, really, because paper getting more expensive and all that sort of stuff, it's nice to still get it in people's hands, really. Gosh, I'm going quickly. I didn't realise Popshot is a poetry magazine, and it includes a whole heap of poems, each one illustrated by different illustrators, which makes it worth picking up just for that. And then they also have interviews with, I think they're with certain illustrators or people involved, certain poets or people involved with poetry festivals and stuff like that. It's just a really neat little format. I'm not massively into poetry, but this is a really good way to present it and hopefully get more people into it. And that was Popshot. We've moved on already. I'm getting left behind by my own video. Oh yeah, this is LaOfficiel. How do you say that? LaOfficiel. Coming from Australia, French accents. I'm just not going to be able to say it properly. I'm not going to try. It's going to just sound wrong. This is their big special amazing 90 years issue, and it's a bit it's slightly cryptic Like it's I kind of actually I think you would need to understand French to understand what they're trying to do in this issue, because it's almost like all back to front. They've sort of put all their features at the front, and then you'll see later there's a big sort of weird advertising birthday thing at the back. But yeah, this is sort of like the slightly dowdier little sister of Vogue, I guess you could say. Like it's not dowdy in itself, but it's just a little safer than French Vogue. I always pick them up because they tend to have really lovely typography. Like the current art director knows how to choose really lovely typefaces. And also I'm a bit of a fan of Tavi. That's Tavi. I'm pointing to Tavi. Tavi will one day be some amazing, massive editor of something. She's probably the most well-known fashion blogger because she was the one that got all the invites to all the fashion shows, and she was about 12 or something, and was sitting in the front rows. But she currently edits a website with loads of contributors about, well, pretty much because she's in her late teens now. It's all about being a late teen and sort of how that involves fashion, and it's just really interesting, really well written, and she will just do amazing stuff. She's really someone to watch. So it's really quite clever that LaOfficiel have managed to put her on their cover, and for their 90th special edition, it's very clever. She could be editing their magazine eventually. I don't know. Maybe by the time she gets to the age when you edit magazines, she won't be interesting to do that anymore. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, see, this is cryptic. It's just odd things. I really liked this. Was a really nice way to present sort of portraits of various women that they rate. But they all had this dot in their forehead like they'd been shot or something. It was a little worrying, I thought. It's French magazines, they can be a little dodgy in terms of how they, gender politics. And I think the more dodgier side of French gender politics are coming into view quite a lot lately. With like Yasmin von Langefort and stuff like this. This is nothing to do with what I was just saying. It's just like I just really liked this. It's all these girls in like amazing frocks with massive shoes playing football, and it's really well shot because it looks. I mean, it's quite convincing. I think. As much as it was probably all incredibly fake, I thought they did a good job of making them look like they were actually playing football. It was really cool. Yeah, so you have all this interesting stuff up the front, and then what you in a fashion magazine you usually get to the back, and then there's the big proper fashion editorials and the big splashy pages and stuff like that. This issue of L'Officiel, it's really hard to tell if these are ads or if it's editorial. I mean, they all have the same format, but everything's by different photographers or illustrators. I think, from my limited knowledge of French, they're all collaborations between a brand and an artist, or a brand and a designer, or something like that. But you don't get that at all. It just feels like lots and lots of advertising. They probably made a fortune out of this issue just on this weird back section alone. I mean, yeah, it was hard to find sort of interesting stuff towards the end. It's a big thick mag too. You'd think it's a bit weird to have all your good stuff at the front and then it sort of peters out at the back. Back to front. I'm looking at L'Officiel's men's version. Shall I try and say that with my dodgy French thing? Is Hommes? L'Officiel Hommes? Do you say the S? I don't know. Oh, I should know. And this issue is interesting because it's been sort of taken over by a street artist named Andre, who became famous in France for doing love graffiti, where you could hire him, or I don't know if you paid him or not. I don't know how it worked, but he would sort of do a piece with your girlfriend's name on sort of a shop front in somewhere in Paris or something like that, and you get a photo of it, all this sort of stuff. And on the back of that, he's sort of grown into this sort of cultural entity in Paris, where he's opened hotels and you know, he's helping edit magazines, and he's just become this massive sort of cultural icon. So you can see his signatures all over here, and literally, like, that's all his handwriting for the headings. And it's a sort of Paris v New York sort of thing going on too, and obviously New York sort of the place for street artists, is it? I don't know. I do feel a bit like street art was last, you know, it's a bit old now. I think we've been there. I think when the Tate managed to plaster street art all over the front of their building, that's when everyone sort of went, maybe this isn't such a good thing. So I do feel like this issue is, I just should point out, there's some nice photography by Hedi Slimani? I always say Hedi Slim Man because he's really skinny. Is that alright? Can we just go with that? Yeah. That section was really nice because it wasn't really selling clothes or anything like that. It's just sort of textual shots. A lot of this magazine actually doesn't seem to be selling clothes so much. I mean, these are all sort of people in New York that you know. Yeah, and I think they've been styled. Sean Lennon's a bit random, I thought. Lee Swillingham there, that guy, is actually one part of Suburbia, who art directs Pop magazine and used to art direct The Face. And he must be based in New York now. Oh yeah, there's some of that weird, dodgy gender politics going on in here as well, where we have a woman who's like a dead fish or something. It just seems so wrong, and it's yeah. There's lots of like naked women being taken advantage of in this issue, with men sort of fully dressed standing around. It's not so good. But yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I should stop going on about it. Oh, it's eye candy for me. I really like this guy. I think he's really cool. He was in some Sean Ellis's film, The Broken. That was the thing I saw him in last. And Sean Ellis used to be a fashion photographer. He did a lot of work for The Face way back when. So he's interesting. He's become a filmmaker now, but he still makes really stylized, pretty stylish looking films. That was the guy who edits Purple Fashion magazine. He tends to get shot a lot by Terry Richardson in dodgy positions with, well, in this case with another naked woman sort of draped around him. Yeah, I just felt a bit old. I like this issue, and I like what Andre's sort of done, and I like the look of it actually. It's sort of old-fashioned but modern at the same time. But yeah, don't ask street artists to edit your magazines anymore. It's not a good idea. This is another one you'll be familiar with, and this is actually our special Stack magazine. This is what you get, or you would have got if you'd subscribed to Stack this month. And if you haven't seen one of these videos before, it's awesome foodie magazine that's edited by Tim Hayward and art directed by Rob Lowe, who calls himself Super Mundane. And Rob is really interesting because he also illustrates pretty much the whole thing. Like, this is all his handwriting and his imagery, and it's very much he's a bit of an auteur, if you like, in the magazine design realm. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting the way they're progressing the magazine too. Like, they started off with just using all sort of Eric Gill typefaces and making it very formal and very English and a bit sort of old-fashioned looking, and now it's got to the stage where it's full of lots of really vibrant handwriting, and it doesn't seem to reference anything else anymore. It is its own thing, which is interesting. I mean, it always has been, but I think it's even more now with all this crazy handwriting going on. It's become its own sort of creature. And we're up to issue 8 too, and they changed after issue 4, so I'm wondering if maybe issue 9 will be different again, and maybe they'll take a different tact. This it's actually worth buying just for this section. It's like so well written. It's my favorite thing ever. Whenever I get a copy of this, I go straight to the back and read the gastrician first, because it's just everything in it is just really well written, and it's all people volunteering their time, and it's really worth supporting. And if you have a Stack subscription, you would have got a copy. So yeah, worth checking out, I think. Oh, we've got another food magazine, and another magazine from France actually. And I thought there's been a lot of food magazines coming out for the English market. I thought the French must be able to do an amazing sort of trendy food magazine. And this is really good. The content actually shines through the design. The design, I don't know, I think maybe the format is too big and floppy for these intimate little pictures. I was pointing to Flakes, which is something that reminds me of Melbourne. Shouldn't have pointed, it's silly. Oh yeah, this is an ad for Colette by it's Carl and oh god, I can't remember their names. I'll have to put a link as an apology somewhere. But they're really good illustrators. They've been doing lots of work for Colette lately. I just thought it was a lovely ad tying in with the food theme of the magazine. But yeah, this was amazing actually. This is a shoot of pinatas and kids having smashed them up, but they're quite bizarre pinatas, all in the shapes of like spiders and insects and crustaceans and things like that. And these kids just look really sort of like they don't know what they're looking at. I know they're sort of meant to look like they're interacting, but actually they just look a bit like, this thing is not, this is weird, this thing. Yeah. See, this is repackaging cheese. It's just, you know, the French have such a they're so attached to food culture. It's really interesting to see a magazine tackling that and finding new angles and being a bit cheeky and a bit irreverent and messing up things. Like this was really good. This was like comparing what products look like on their packets to what they actually look like on the plate. And the amazing the way they get around things by putting serving suggestion on things and all that sort of stuff. Here's another wacky photo shoot. This was this was just really good. A good and yet so bad like reinventing the cookie, like reinventing Oreos by actually baking a cookie around the outside of the Oreo. It's like a cookie inside a cookie. Oh, so bad, but so good at the same time. So yeah, it's called, I didn't say what it's called fricote. How do you say that in French? Is that fricote? Fricote? I have no idea what that word means. I really need to brush up on my French, don't I? It's for the urban Epicurean, and the design's so-so, but the editorial's really, really good. We're looking at Sid. This is a magazine This is a really good magazine. SID is like an organization that helps promote magazines in Sweden, I think it is. I can't read any of this, it's all in Swedish. But yeah, they do so well, like at promoting magazines. You sort of wonder why other places aren't doing this sort of thing, you know? They have a blog, which is really worth stopping by. I'll put a link to it. And every now and then they sort of issue forth a publication. I actually like the previous one better. I thought it was a bit more interesting. It looked a bit more interesting. This is more like a sort of, it sort of is like a cheaper sort of looking magazine design, which, you know, it addresses all the different audiences they have. What I was flicking through too was like a massive feature about Interview magazine, which I so wish I could read. I'm tempted to try and get someone to translate it for me. It just looks really comprehensive. Parq is a magazine that you would have seen on these reading list videos before. I keep including it because I'm really interested in the evolution of the design. Like, it's quite exciting. It sort of reminds me a bit of the old days of the Face when you didn't know what the next issue was going to look like. Like they kept changing things and reinventing things, and it's odd because it has such a strong visual identity, this magazine. It's essentially a style magazine, just full of sort of stuff about pop stars and films and clothes and things like that. For a Portuguese audience, it's a Portuguese magazine. But yeah, I mean, this issue, it's all toned down, it's just all universe, but it's got these red borders around, and next issue it will be completely different again. It's really, really interesting. Ooh, oh, we got a newspaper. Oh, and it's free. And I picked this up actually. I'm such a dork. I was in Slam City Skates because never been able to skate. I don't know what I'm doing in a skate shop, but that's where I was. And I saw this, and it's really, really interesting. It's published in, I think it's from, is it Berlin? Yeah, it is. It's from Berlin. And I just thought it was really interesting that somebody's done like a newspaper that's full of sort of street culture, I guess. I don't know, but they've made it look really formal. Like it's almost like, you know, it's more formal than the Guardian. Like there's no color. There's just really standard, strict typefaces. They're just really rigorously designed. But full of like crazy stuff, like this article about Sharpies, which, being from Melbourne, I was really interested in because it's one of the few sort of youth subcultures we seem to have invented, not just copied from somewhere else. And they have a massive sort of 4-page feature about Sharpies with lots of really good pictures. Once you get inside, there's colour, but on the exterior, or on the front page anyway, it's just it's all black and white. And really interesting for a publication that has such lively content. But it's really interesting to look out for. It's called Aspekt Ratio, that one. And this is our last magazine. It's a special one from the archive that I managed to find. It's from 1967. Inside it says, an antidote to the timidity, I don't know timidity was a word, and corruption of the American press. Now this was a magazine that it didn't last super long, and I actually think there was some sort of legal action against the publisher that stopped publication of it. The publisher was Ralph Ginsberg, who is a name you probably know, and he was behind Avant-Garde magazine, and I think it was Avant-Garde magazine. He was behind Eros as well, I think. And they're all like really trendy magazines from the 70s, 60s and 70s. Usually working with Herb Lublin, and he's actually art director on this magazine as well. Although it's really quite calm for Herb Lublin, like it's all in times. There's not a lot of variation in the actual typefaces, apart from sort of at the end of each article there's some typewritten stuff which is in all sorts of different typewriter typefaces, which is a really lovely little touch. All the illustrations in this issue are by the same person, so I haven't seen another issue to know whether that's what they usually do, like one person does all the illustration. But they're just really witty, clever little collages. I particularly liked the one, it was a person's head and they just cut it into several lines out to make it look like they were in prison. And a really interesting read too. This one's all about like the American restaurants are any good, and whether you pay too much for food and stuff that sort of felt a little relevant still. Yeah. So that was fact, and wow, I've done all that. I don't know how to sign off now. That went so quickly. Is that better though? That's better than me sort of going, I don't know what to say. I should sign off because it's going to cut me off in a sec anyway. I just wanted to say in this last end bit, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking out the vids and stuff. This actually marks 5 years worth of blogging for my blog at linefeed.me. And a big thanks to Stack, as usual, for supplying us with fire and knives this issue. Stack offer a subscription service where you get a surprise selection of carefully curated mags over the course of however long you take your subscription out for. It's for maglophiles. It's like the most awesome present every time it drops through your letterbox, and thoroughly recommended. And you can check out Stack at stackmagazines.com. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. There'll be more of these eventually, and I'll stop now. I stopped talking. I can't stop talking. Somebody stop me talking.